Chapter 3, The Legend of Blind Love. They say that when she came to the shamans, she was young and beautiful, but her heart was already taken. She loved a man she thought was perfect, intelligent, strong, proud. He never looked at her, as if he stood above love itself. He didn't take a step toward her, didn't call, didn't answer. So she decided to brew a potion, the one no one had ever managed to make, the formula of perfect feeling. A love that would awaken even the coldest heart, that would not turn away, would not run, would recognize and return her. The shamans warned her, "We can show you the path, but it may take more strength to come back to the beginning than to reach the end." She agreed. They say that before beginning the brew, she went into solitude. She didn't read, she listened. Listened to the ancient tomes whispering to her in an unknown tongue, to the nameless books left behind by those who spoke without words. She absorbed the formulas like dreams of the departed, alchemy as philosophy, magic as wisdom. Many winters and summers passed. By night she boiled her cauldrons, whispering spells over herbs, leaving her voice in the smoke. Her fingers burned, her body withered, her mind cracked like firewood in a hearth. With every formula, every whisper, she wasn't just brewing a potion, she was unlocking gates. Opening doors that once opened would never close again. Unsealing spells buried beneath centuries of dust. And with the potion, something else was born. Something that demanded a sacrifice. Not a spirit, not a living being, but something other. Something hidden behind the runes. It had no pity, no feeling, no soul. And yet it needed protection. It didn't just make one fall in love, it turned a person into someone who loves, without fear, without condition, and without will. The potion had only one rule: the soul would bind forever to the first being it saw. She came to him and said it was just a game. She dimmed the lights, leaving only a distant candle melting in the corner. "Let's play," she said. "Shamanic roulette." She tied his eyes with her scarf, hung a kettle around his neck, as the ritual demanded. He chose the herbs blindly, dropping them into the cauldron without knowing what would come of it. That was the essence of the rite. But she had already changed everything: the herbs, the water, even the nature of the ritual itself. When the potion was ready, he drank, placed the cup on the table, paused, then said, "You must have spiked it with a truth serum, huh?" He smiled. "It's the only reason I can say this now." She froze. "I love you," he said. "I just didn't know how to say it. I couldn't while you were watching. But now, I can't see you. And that's a relief. So I'll say it. I love you." He reached for the scarf. "Enough of this game, all right? I want to see you. Now." She caught his hand. "Don't." "Why?" She fell silent. And then, for the first time in all those years, something clicked inside her, as if the ancients within the books whispered the truth she'd long refused to hear, as if at last she heard herself. "I don't want this anymore," she said softly. "Don't want what?" he asked. "I don't want to be the result of a spell. I've been blinded by the recipe of love for too long. Now I know. Everything brewed in a cauldron demands a sacrifice. Everything created by a formula enslaves. But real love asks for nothing. It simply is." She looked at him through the dark fabric as though through a veil. "And if you open your eyes, it won't be you anymore. It'll be the potion inside you." And barely audibly she added, "You've already drunk it. All that will remain is the shadow of your will." He froze. "That's impossible. No one could create such a thing." "I did," she said quietly. "And if you open your eyes, it will take hold. You'll love the first one you see, without doubt, without choice, forever." She was silent. "But I already love you," he said, "without the potion." Her fingers trembled. She looked at him as if searching for her future in his face. "Exactly," she whispered. And if you look at me now, that love will become something else. Eternal, but no longer yours. I don't want to be an illusion inside your heart. I want to be a choice. Living. Real. Her hands were no longer young, her face tired, distant. I don't want you to love what I've become, she said. Let the one you remember stay, the woman I was. Now I'm only a shadow that followed the temptation of power. She leaned toward him, pressed her forehead to his, and kissed him, trembling, a tear tracing her cheek. Forgive me, she whispered. I can't let you open your eyes. I've walked too long toward your love. She released his hand and left. He didn't call after her. He understood, long before she spoke, and he never took off the blindfold. They say he still sits in that room, with the scarf over his eyes, the kettle on his chest, waiting for the door to open one day, and for her to enter. The real one, without potions, without illusions, just her. The scarf closed his eyes, but not his heart. The fall was short, but long enough for Lily to regret jumping into that hole beneath the stairs. With a dull thud, she hit something hard, dusty, covered in dry herbs. Pain flared in her elbow and thigh. Ow, damn it! She hissed through her teeth. Damn you, darling! Always loved your puzzles, traps, secret passages. A real escape room enthusiast, bless your soul. Dust filled her throat, her hair stuck to her face. Then came silence, thick, heavy, suffocating. Darkness wrapped around everything, as if hiding her under a glass dome. She sat up, grimacing, clutching her bruised arm. Brilliant. Jump into a hole, break your tailbone. A dream come true. She groped around for her phone. Thank God, still working, and the tailbone seems intact. The screen flared to life. The flashlight beam trembled, sliding across the walls. Stone, cobwebs, remnants of dried flowers. The smell was heavy and sweet, like a forgotten greenhouse where dead leaves had long blended with soil. The dust itched her nose. Where the hell am I? She muttered. A crypt. Perfect. She sniffed, looked around. Just what every graveyard tour guide dreams of. Hope my husband didn't plan to get rid of me this way, leaving me here in advance, she grumbled, brushing debris off her hand. Beneath her, stone, wide, gray, dusty. She ran her palm over the rough surface, carved at the edges with symbols, tiny insect-like circles, a lid, a sarcophagus. Oh, come on, Lily exhaled. Just perfect, pure shamanic style. Carefully, almost holding her breath, she traced the edge with her fingers. The carvings were burned into the stone, sharp, angular, and in the center, a mark. Almost identical to the tattoo on her husband's palm, only rougher, more alive, flowers, lots of them. They lay around the sarcophagus as if freshly placed. The petals were still bright, living, not a single one had wilted. This is definitely some sort of spell, she murmured. And not an ordinary one. Someone important is lying here. You can feel it. She glanced around. And what exactly am I doing here, in this tomb? She muttered. Think logically, Lily. Room's empty. Bit of water in the corner. A jug. Flowers. No shelves, no drawers, no hidden door. A claustrophobic's dream come true. She sighed. Okay, that leaves only this stone beauty. Damn sarcophagus. She stepped closer and brushed her fingers along the lid. Shuddered. What I can't stand are grave things. Stone lids, bones, ancient teeth, dried fingers. Ugh, no, thank you, I'm alive. For now. She paused, studying the lid, almost gently but wary. Why am I even opening this? If something jumps out, I won't have time to close it back. No going back. Pause. All right, I'm already here. Just don't let my dear husband have planned another of his burial challenges, especially one ending with his favorite boo. Lily braced her knees and elbows against the lid. It didn't move at first. Then with a groan, it shifted slowly as if resisting, as if it too didn't want to be disturbed. From the opening seeped a deep, ancient breath, like time itself leaking out. The smell struck immediately, thick, acrid, the scent of a place where everything had died long ago, yet refused to vanish. She shone the light inside, a skeleton, laid neatly, almost carefully. But there was more space inside than one body needed, as if they had been waiting for someone else. Around the neck, an amulet. On the chest, a strip of darkened fabric still clinging to its old shape. "A woman," Lily whispered. "Definitely a woman." She leaned closer and froze. Between the teeth, tucked tight, a rolled-up piece of paper, small, thin, slightly damp as if just placed there. Lily stared for a moment, then murmured, "I know this." This was how the old rites went. They left a message in the mouth, so the guide in the other world could read it, accept it, forgive. She reached out carefully as if touching snakeskin, barely breathing. The scroll was cold. It didn't smell of dust or decay, but of something that shouldn't be touched at all. She froze. "Well, that's it," she whispered. "Now everything's officially going to go wrong." Added under her breath, "Should have just stayed in the corner. No surprises, no mouth scrolls, just waited for something meaningless to happen." She unrolled it, letters and numbers, bold, clear. GT 142307. Lily frowned, blinked. Something twitched inside. The code felt familiar, but from where? She sat on the edge of the sarcophagus, the stone bit cold through her clothes. Her fingers clenched the note harder than she meant to. Images flashed before her eyes, a white corridor, stacks of worn folders, scratched desks, and then a dry, hollow voice in her head, reading from afar. She blinked. The vision vanished. Lily exhaled sharply. "Oh, God, I know what this is. Why am I just sitting here like an idiot?" The note trembled in her fingers, almost whispering, "Don't delay." She slipped it into her pocket, brushed her palm across the fabric, and stood. "All right," she said, lifting her chin. "Time to get out of here." She raised the flashlight. The beam swung in a wide circle across the darkness. "Well, darling," she muttered, "you'll tell me what to do next, right?" No answer. But in the corner where the light swept past, a door emerged. Lily's lips curved faintly. Without hesitation, she jumped down from the sarcophagus, gripped the flashlight tighter, and walked toward the door. Lucas wandered down the corridor, swaying slightly as if he wasn't entirely sure where his legs were taking him. A blanket hung from his shoulders, dragging along the floor like a faded, worn-out cloak. He clutched it tight, as if it could somehow protect him from whatever was happening. The hallway was lit by a few dim wall lamps, the kind of dull yellow light that looks like it's already dying. The hotel seemed to inhale and then never exhale. Night pressed down on it with a heavy, suffocating silence. Only the occasional creak of the floorboards broke through that stillness, the kind that feels like waiting for something you don't want to meet. Ahead of him shimmered the faint outline of a woman in an old-fashioned dress, half transparent, made of smoke. The walls showed through her body. Every step looked unreal, as if she wasn't walking but being remembered. Lucas followed without a word, without a thought, as though under a spell. The corridor grew darker, damper. Mold clung to the walls, the air thick with the smell of rot, like a forgotten basement. Somewhere in the distance, water dripped, slow, eternal. Time here didn't move. It leaked, drop by drop. The woman turned, gently, almost like dancing, and disappeared behind a heavy double door with a half-erased sign, "Hall No." The door cracked open a little like an invitation. Lucas stepped forward without thinking. He touched the handle. It was cold, as if untouched for centuries. The door groaned open on its own, loud enough to wake the whole corridor. Inside, an old movie theater. Dusty, stale, with a silence that seemed ready to scream. The air was thick, heavy, like no one had breathed it in years. Dust hung in the light beams from the cloudy lamps as though the room itself was trying to remember something. The seats were all in place, covered with faded cloths. Some were crooked, the upholstery cracked, yellow foam poking through, but they still faced the screen, waiting. A projector stood in the back, covered in rust and cobwebs. Its empty reel swayed gently as if trying to turn, as though time inside it hadn't yet given up. Lucas leaned closer. Nothing inside. No film, no movement, only silence, so deep he could hear the air aging. He was about to leave when the projector suddenly stuttered to life, like a frozen tractor. Rah, rah, rah. The reels shuddered, groaned, began to spin, filling the room with a dry, metallic growl. A beam of light burst out and struck the screen. Pure white noise, a blizzard of static in black and white hell. The screen was cracked at the corners like an old eggshell, and in those cracks something seemed to pulse. Lucas turned, half convinced it was a trick. Checked the projector. Still empty. He glanced around. No one. Nothing. He muttered, "Well, why not? Might as well sit down. Maybe they'll start the movie. Or hold a seance. Not that it'd be my first." He slumped into the nearest seat, the springs whining like an arthritic joint. And then someone sat beside him. No sound, no visible movement, just a faint stir of air, a whisper of fabric, the soft vibration of the seat. Someone, or something, was there. He froze, brow twitching, lips parted. His heart hammered somewhere too high, like it had climbed up into his throat. He didn't dare turn, but slowly, trembling, tilted his head to the right, pulling the blanket higher like a shield. Next to him, her, sitting perfectly still, like a statue carved from bone, no breath, no blink. Her face, porcelain smooth, flawless enough to shake him, hair pinned up in a teacher's bun, and around her neck, a necklace made of eyes, real eyes. And God, they were looking at him, all of them, unblinking. That was a bit much. Lucas frowned. There was something familiar about her, but from where? He tried to remember, and then, flash, his old teacher, strict, cold, terrifying. He used to skip her classes all the time, terrified of her, though if he was honest now, he'd had a ridiculous crush on her. "I can almost see it," he whispered. "The bell rings, the door creaks, and in she walks, the Inquisitor. Or as we called her, sit down, F." He chuckled nervously. "Well, that's new. Guess all that was missing here was you." He pressed himself into the seat. His fingers clamped the armrest like lifelines. Gathering what courage he had left, he leaned slightly forward. "Who are you?" he whispered. "Are you—" She didn't move, didn't breathe. Only the hum of the projector filled the void, and the uncanny sense that what sat beside him wasn't human at all. The silence between them was oxygenless, not a pause but a pressure, a hammer made of air. Lucas pulled the blanket tighter and spoke in the tone of a guilty schoolboy. "Right, that's enough. Fear quota's full, time for bed." She stared ahead, perfectly still. He muttered under his breath, "Or maybe I'm already asleep." He nodded once, trying to convince himself. "If it's a dream, better get back under the blanket while I still can." The silence was crushing him from the inside. He couldn't stand it anymore. His breath hitched. Then he jumped up, almost tripping. "What the hell is this? Where am I? Is this a dream? Or am I not waking up this time?" He stumbled toward the door, but froze. The screen came alive. A sharp click. The ancient machine roared louder. On the screen, a trembling, time-worn image. A village of woven huts, bonfires everywhere, smoke crawling low across the ground, faces hidden in shadow, slow ritual movements, like a dream you never had but somehow remember. Lucas blinked, his voice cracked. "Well, would you look at that? Show's starting." Wonder what we're watching." He sank back into the seat. Deep down, he already knew he wasn't supposed to leave. The Inquisitor was still beside him, unmoving. Only now she seemed to stare through the screen, not at it. Then she stood up, silently, gracefully. Walked to the screen, turned and beckoned. Her gesture was calm, patient, almost kind. Lucas hesitated. His reason screamed, his fear begged. He adjusted the blanket on his shoulders, his makeshift armor, and stepped toward her. Her gaze held him still. There was no threat there, only a strange pull, like a song without words. He stopped in front of her, looked at her outstretched hand. It looked real, almost alive, yet glowed faintly from within. "This is insane," he muttered. "I'm actually about to follow a ghost." He reached, then froze. "Don't do it," he whispered to himself. "You might not come back." A flash, Lily in the sarcophagus, the runes, the note between her lips. If something happened to her and he turned away now, he'd never forgive himself. The ghost nodded, almost reassuringly. He exhaled and took her hand. A burst of light. His whole body trembled, humming like a machine switched on. Ringing filled his ears, white spots swam before his eyes. The touch was too real, too warm for a nightmare. She stepped forward, and he followed, right into the screen. The surface rippled beneath his fingers, soft, warm, like fabric made of vapor. His hand sank into mist. He felt it tingling all over his skin. "Ticklish," he murmured. "Goddamn ticklish." And then, a shift. He looked down. His hands were fading. He turned and saw himself. Standing by the screen, blanket on his shoulders, mouth open in a silent scream, eyes wide, empty. Like a mannequin in a shop window, he thought. Just needs a sign, clearance sale. "So, I'm not coming back," he whispered. The sound was hollow, like spoken from inside a jar. "And my voice, why does it sound like this, like the void talking back?" Panic surged. He spun around, searching for a way out, took one step back, but it was too late. Something was pulling him in. Then her hand gripped his, hard, not ghostly anymore, solid. He didn't resist. There was no point. And in that moment he understood. Yes, he was a ghost now. Before he could even think it through, they were gone, dissolved into the film that no one ever made. Henry looked around, trying to make sense of where he'd ended up. His head began to spin from the uncertainty. It might once have been an office, but now it looked more like a graveyard of things that had forgotten their purpose and their place in the world. Everything around him gathered dust, smoked faintly, and muttered to itself in a dozen forgotten languages. From the depths came a smell of clove, burnt incense, and old paper, tangled with the sweetness of dried fruit. His nose twitched as if on the verge of a sneeze. The floor was scattered with open books, bent, weary, as though they'd given up waiting for a reader. The master walked through the chaos with the calm confidence of a saint. Henry followed more carefully, nudging aside rags and books with his foot to keep the old man from tripping. He couldn't quite decide whether the man could actually see through that blindfold or was just putting on an act of enlightenment. "Don't touch them," barked the master, spinning around. "They're exactly where they belong." He paused, then added sharply, "And I'm not blind. I see perfectly well where I'm going." Henry grimaced, muttering under his breath as he stepped over a pot with an open book inside it. "Yeah, sure you do. And if you trip over your holiness right now, guess who'll get blamed? Me. I'll have to carry you, and if you break your neck, they'll all say, 'Well done, Henry, you killed a saint.'" The master immediately turned and announced, "And I'm not deaf either." He stopped suddenly before an old open book, as if he'd stumbled not upon an object but upon something alive. He lowered his hand onto the pages, not to read, but to listen. For several seconds he was silent, then gave a slow nod to himself. And then, out of nowhere, he leaned closer and practically shouted, as though making a long-distance call without a number. "Well, hello there. You again? Yes, yes, argue all you want while I'm flipping your pages. You're still trapped in here, so rant yourself purple if you must." He snapped his fingers and whispered toward the book. "Hush, you don't get to decide." Then he tilted his head toward the teapot hanging on his chest and said confidentially, "Hear that, Brurick? Calissa's at it again. The world can be rewritten. You're just afraid of ink. Teaching me, can you imagine? What a splinter." The teapot let out an annoyed puff of steam. The master chuckled. "Exactly, I agree. She's lying through her parchment teeth, but she never stops arguing, the old disputant." He nodded again, murmuring, "Calissa, the eternal debater. Shut up already, leaf witch." The pages rustled as if huffing in protest. Brurick answered with a faint, satisfied, "Psh." The master grinned. "See? You're wiser than all their letters put together." He leaned toward the book and snorted, "Oh, I hear you. You're not reading me. I'm reading you. That's what she says, Brurick. Spent her life buried in books, and now she's stuck inside one." He brushed his palm gently across the pages and turned to Henry. "Look, see? I even brought no one here to meet you. Maybe he'll manage something, though." He tilted his head as if seeing Henry's face through the blindfold. "Judging by your aura, the odds aren't great." The master didn't close the book. He simply blew lightly across the pages as though clearing away invisible dust and continued on his way. He stopped at a wobbling chest of drawers and muttered, "Now, where did I put them? The matches. Had them somewhere. Either tied them to the teapot or left them in that book, How to Ignite Politely." He rummaged through his robe pockets, checked under a blanket, searched his sleeve, peered under a stool, then waved his hand in frustration. "Brurick, did you see where I put them?" The teapot hissed meaningfully. The master froze, straightened, and slapped his forehead. "Ah, right, of course. Haven't used those in 100 years. Empty-headed fool. My skull's full of tea instead of brains." He grumbled almost resentfully, "To hell with matches. Who even gets them to work nowadays?" Then he clapped his hands loudly and proclaimed, "Let the fire rise straight from the ashes." With a soft whump, a small but steady flame flared up in the center of the room. "Strike me with a drum," he exhaled in relief. At least something worked on the first try. He spun toward Henry and pointed to an old chair by the fire, draped with a greasy plaid. "Sit." Henry eyed the chair suspiciously. "No surprises waiting, right?" The master spread his arms. "No surprise, no path. The world throws stones so you notice you're walking." Henry squinted. "So it's not a trap." "A trap isn't to sit," said the master calmly. "A trap is not to sit." Henry sighed and sat down. The blanket beneath him creaked, as if reluctantly accepting him. The teapot on the master's chest twitched and let out a faint puff of steam. "You've got a teapot on your chest," Henry said carefully. "Is that an amulet or—" The master waved a hand, clearly used to the question. "That's Brurick. He's got a temper, so be polite." "Psh, psh," grumbled Brurick softly, almost offended. Henry scratched his head. "So who's in charge here? You or him?" The master sighed, like a man who'd answered this far too many times. "Depends on the hour. Sometimes me, sometimes him, and sometimes—" He squinted. "Sometimes we both fall asleep. Then the hotel runs itself." He tossed a bundle of dried herbs into the fire. The flame turned blue. The air thickened, heavy, almost liquid. Henry coughed. "What is that?" The master leaned close, his voice becoming a chant. "It's not what you think. It's what already has you. A place you've been and will be again. We're going deeper." He fixed Henry with a steady look. "Tell me, Henry, do you like games?" Henry hesitated. "Depends. What kind?" "Shamanic roulette. Ever played?" Henry frowned. "Can't say I have. What's the catch?" The master smiled faintly, like a man revealing a favorite trick. Simple rules. We blindfold you, hang a teapot around your neck, and you choose herbs by touch. Brew them, and drink. Whatever you pick becomes your story. That's how you'll see the hotel. Isn't that why you came? For answers? He sighed as though his words themselves were heavy to hold. It's getting hard for an old man to remember everything. My memory's full of holes, like a drum after 100 rituals. Easier to show than to tell. Is it safe? Henry asked uncertainly. The master didn't answer. He simply pulled out a worn blindfold and tied it tightly over Henry's eyes. Then he hung a small dented teapot around Henry's neck, almost a toy but with a deep metallic hum. That's Brurick's sister, he said gravely. She's got a nastier temper, so mind your manners. He paused, listening to something unseen. Wait, I'm preparing. Don't peek. Silence stretched like a string. Then he clapped his hands once. Done. Now, choose the herbs. They're in front of you. Henry hesitated, reached forward and felt the bundles, dry, brittle, yet somehow reaching toward his fingertips. That's it, said the master softly. Trust yourself. Henry fumbled, touching, weighing, afraid to make the wrong choice. How do I know which one's right? He muttered. The master chuckled. They're all right. Don't flinch. Guaranteed effect. I'm no fortune teller with cards. My stuff skips the pictures and goes straight to the blood. Henry swallowed, gathered his courage, and finally chose. Good, said the master with a drawn-out sigh. Very good. And what does it mean? Henry asked, his voice trembling. Don't worry, the master said calmly. You're already there. Almost. He swiftly took the herbs, dropped them into Henry's teapot, and murmured, In a moment you can drink. The master settled cross-legged on a strange stool covered with a ragged curtain, pulled a mug from under it, blew off the dust, and muttered, So you don't sneeze your fate away. A few seconds later, Henry's teapot began to puff and wheeze like a tired kettle. The master leaned forward and poured the tea straight from it into the mug hanging at Henry's chest. Thick, honey-colored steam rose, carrying the scent of smoke, forest resin, and something bittersweet. The aroma didn't linger in the air. It moved, curling under the skin. Don't make faces, said the master. I see everything. He handed Henry the mug. A proper brew. You'll taste it not with your tongue, but your body. Henry lifted it hesitantly. It burned his lips. The taste was strange but familiar, like dreams boiled down into spice. With each sip, he didn't taste, he sank. The world began to circle him, light at first, then heavy, viscous. The master reclined and said evenly, Don't look so worried. It's not an elixir of fate, just a shamanic infusion of real illusions. What of illusions? Henry's voice sounded muffled, distant, underwater. Then the master's words echoed again, inside him, not outside. Not a voice, but a vibration through bone. Don't fight it. Let it run through your veins. It's quick. A clap. The master's hands came together. The sound cracked the air, too loud like a gunshot or a lock snapping shut. The blanket beneath Henry changed. It wasn't fabric anymore, not cotton, not wool, softer, thicker, almost liquid. He felt himself falling, not down but inward, deeper and deeper still.